Hello, welcome to Using Web Archives for Art Historical Research. Today, we will be talking about the many ways that web archives can be a valuable resource for art historians. My name is Miranda Seiler, and I'm a graduate student at Pratt Institute studying library and information science and the history of art and design. I'm also a web archiving fellow at the NYARC Art Resources Consortium. So before we get started, I want to talk a little bit about the greater context of the relationship between art history and the digital. As a field, art history may lag behind others when it comes to embracing the digital. In many ways, there's still a strong emphasis on monographs, and to a lesser extent, periodicals, as far as getting recognition, tenure status, etc. Now, this is not to say that monographs are bad or that we shouldn't use them or write them. Rather, we should expand our notions of what constitutes scholarly authority. Because as it turns out, web material is becoming increasingly authoritative and accessible, something that we've had to consider more and more as library access has been limited during the pandemic. So here are just some examples of online art resources that you probably already use. On one hand, you might encounter a digital equivalent to traditionally analog material, like museum, gallery, and auction catalogs raisonné, and conference material. There are also plenty of new resources like artist and designer websites, databases, online exhibitions, and other projects like blogs or something like that. So this is all great, but there's an elephant in the room. And that is that the internet is ephemeral. It is likely that you have encountered a page not found message before, when a link breaks or a website is redesigned. This is a fairly normal occurrence. In fact, according to some estimates, the average lifespan of any given web page is somewhere between 44 to 100 days. So web archiving was created as a solution for this problem. I'll read this quote. Web archivists aim to capture and preserve the dynamic and functional aspects of web pages, including active links, embedded media and animation, while also maintaining the context and relationships between files. So just to be clear, a web archive refers to an archive of web content, not a physical archive that was digitized and put online. So to just give a little rundown of how web archiving works. First, different elements of a web page, such as images, fonts, text, etc., are captured, either with a bot or by hand. Then all of those elements are stored in one master file. Then that file is played back using emulation software. It's like watching a DVD. The elements making up the movie consist of images and sounds, which are all stored on a DVD and then played using a DVD player. So now I am going to give you a little overview of just some web archives that might be useful in art historical research. So the first is the Wayback Machine, which is run by the Internet Archive. You might have heard of it. Basically, it uses bots to capture websites, and you can find previous versions of any given page using the URL. So you would put your URL here, basically. And to just give a personal example, part of my undergrad thesis had to do with contemporary neo-pagan goddess worshippers making pilgrimages to the Çatalhöyük dig site in Turkey because of some of the prehistoric figurines that have been found there. And I saw a reference to a discussion about this that was on the official Çatalhöyük website, but it seems to have disappeared, as you can see here. So I put the URL into the Wayback Machine and found an archived version of the site from 2015 that had the page that I was looking for. And I was able to include this in my thesis. And because of the availability to go back and forth in the timeline of a web page, as you can see here, the Wayback Machine could also be used to look at the evolution of something over time, say like a brand or a logo. So the next series of resources that I'm going to show you are powered by archiveit.org, which is also run by the Internet Archive. So the technology that's used is very similar to Wayback, but there are two main differences. The first is that instead of needing a specific URL to access an archived site, Archiveit uses curated thematic collections that you can browse through, as you would a traditional archive or a stacks in the library. A second difference is that Archivit allows the web archivist to engage in a quality assurance process, basically going back in and collecting any files that the crawler bot might have missed on the first try. Generally, this means that pages in Archivit collections are more complete than those found in the Wayback Machine. So now I'm just going to show you a couple of examples. So the first is this is the Archivit page for the New York Art Resources Consortium, or NYARC, which is where I'm currently a fellow. So as you can see, we have a number of different art-related collections. So I'm just going to look at the catalog raisonné real quick. So you can see that there are a number of websites that have been collected. And when you click on one, you're brought to a landing page with dates. So let's look at the Louise Bourgeois one. So here's this landing page. So this functions similarly to the timeline that's in Wayback. And you can see different versions. So I'm just going to go, let's go all the way back to 2015. And here we are. And this functions as it did in 2015. So just one more Archivit collection real quick. This is the Collective Architecture and Design Response to COVID-19 Web Archive. It is being archived by the Ivy Plus Libraries Confederation. And as you can see, they've archived a wide variety of websites like design news sites, open source designs, and also professional organizations like the AIA. And this collection is particularly interesting because as websites start taking down COVID content over time, this will become an invaluable resource for architectural historians, as it is useful right now for folks who are just looking for information about COVID-19's effects on architecture. So the last example that I'm going to show you uses a different web archiving software that, which is called Conifer. So instead of relying on a bot to capture files, the web crawling process is done manually. So Conifer was originally created in order to archive interactive web art and is great for capturing complex websites like social media. So this is the Clark's Web Archive of the Venice Biennale, which they have incorporated into their digital collections. So if I go click on their Instagram collection, you can see that I'm brought to this collection page. So let's look at the Thai Pavilion Instagram. If I go to this site here, so here I'm brought to this Conifer site. And this is the archived Instagram page, which functions just the same as a regular Instagram page, you know, with videos, comments, etc. And this is just a lot easier to do in Conifer than it is using Archivit. Hopefully, this short overview was helpful for you as you begin your journey using web archives for art historical research. You can find links to all of the examples I showed, as well as numerous other collections at tinyurl.com/WA4AH. Thanks.